Well, good afternoon, everyone. The H1B guy here, and today a special Friday edition of the H1B guy live on May 20th, 2022, a little after 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the US. Today I'm going to cover USCIS processing backlogs that continue to grow, these digital nomad visas that are starting to pop up in Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as cover some advocacy efforts that have occurred over the past week in Washington, D.C. And if we have some time, would love to take your questions and comments during a rapid fire Q&A. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube and like this video so that I can continue to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention the H1B Guy offers a variety of consulting services. I help businesses and individuals solve complex work authorization issues in the recruitment process while bringing awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. If I can help you, please reach out. I'd love to hear how. And you can book an appointment directly with me via the h1bguy.com. Today's post and live stream is brought to you by Syndesis and Path to Canada, the ideal plan B for high skilled immigrants currently in the US whose status may be uncertain. If you're facing an H1B denial or OPT expiration, don't get caught off guard. Make sure you have a plan B, and Syndesis and Path to Canada are your answers. Also by PERM-ads.com, the industry leader in providing a seamless experience for employers and immigration attorneys navigating the complex PERM recruitment ad phase of the labor certification process. And also by Mob Squad. If you're a technology professional facing US work visa related challenges, your OPT may be about to expire and you weren't selected in the most recent H1B lottery, our partner Mob Squad has a solution. Join the squad. Well, thanks to everyone who has joined me here this afternoon. As I mentioned, I was trying to think back on the last time I actually did a Friday live stream. I don't know in the history of the H1B Guy platform and the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube if I've actually done a live stream. Historically, I've produced the H1B Guy news for the week ending, whatever date it is on Friday. So today would be week ending 5/20. Unfortunately, I've been very busy traveling to meet with clients and really just doing a lot of work authorization and recruiting support for the clients that I work with in a professional setting. And so I had some time here this afternoon, and as much as I love producing edited content, I love doing these live streams and sort of the impromptu conversations that stem from when we have these live streams. But there were a few things that did catch my attention in the news over the last several days, and some of which has been highlighted out on a variety of the social media platforms out there. One of the things that seems to be getting a lot of traction here over the last couple of days is the growing backlog and processing for USCIS. Now, there were reports that came out about some of the historic processing that had taken place in USCIS in Q2. But when we start to really look at the data and we start to look at the allocation specifically surrounding employment-based green cards that are issued out on an annual basis, and the current allotment that is available and allocated for this year, we can start to get a gauge of what the end result may be looking like as we move into the summer months, as well as September, which is the last month of the fiscal year for the U.S. government. I think the interesting thing, and kind of going back to last week, it really caught me off guard, and that is EB2 dates specifically for final action and their advancement that was 365 days forward. So what we saw, really was a movement from September of 2013 all the way to September 2014. So that got me thinking, and what I started to think about was I wanted to go back and look at some of the I-140 approval data. And I've covered this before, back in 2020 actually, and I'll try to link that post and that video in the video description once the live stream wraps up here today. But I did a calculation on the numbers from 2009 to 2019 on I-140 immigrant petitions for alien workers that were approved. And so, what I wanted to draw some attention to today to kind of give us some insight into what I think is occurring in the advancement of the dates and what I think could possibly happen over the next couple of months. And I know a lot of you have reached out to me and asked me to do some predictions on what I think is going to happen coming up in October. So I'll be working on that post and most likely getting something out there over the next few weeks. Last summer, I did a look ahead to the October 2021 visa bulletin that got a lot of traction. But I wanted to jump down and look at EB2 for India specifically, going back to 2012. And so what we see are approval numbers of 22,311 I-140s. And if we look at 2013, that number is 21,440. And fast forwarding then to 2014, 25,634. So why do I think these numbers are interesting? Well, I think these numbers are interesting. If you calculate it, it comes close to almost 70,000 I-140s that were approved in 2012, 2013, and 2014 combined. Well, if we go back and look at the advancement that has occurred specifically, okay, in EB2 for India, all right, and we look at what that movement looks like if we start to track the movement over the last 6 months, as well as the movement that occurred in the last month, and it'll paint a little bit of a clearer picture of what's been occurring. And so, ultimately, when we had the 365 days of forward movement that occurred over the last year, and then if we go back and look at what's happened specifically in the last 6 months, okay, and that is 488 days of forward movement that's occurred previously. So May of 2022 all the way back to December of 2021. Okay. And if we add in that additional 365 days to the 488, we have 853 days of forward movement that's occurred. So the interesting thing to me is that's almost 1,000 days roughly of forward movement that we've seen now in the last 7 months. The question becomes, does USCIS have the processing capabilities to use the remaining allocation and to avoid this corrective action that continues to be rumored? And I think very clearly all signs point to that they're not going to be able to process probably more than 200,000 employment-based green cards this year. And a lot of individuals from China continue to ask me, why has there not been any forward movement for EB2 for China? Well, let's go back and look at China's I-140 approval numbers. And I think the dates that are most interesting here are those 2018, 2019 dates. Okay. So for EB2 specifically, 2019, there were 9,041 I-140s that were approved. If we go back to 2018, specifically in EB3, because that's where those dates are right now, that number, of course, looks a little different. That number specifically for China in EB3, of course, April 2018 is what's current. But when we look at EB3 approval numbers from 2018 for I-140s, it is for China 4,200. And if we go to 2019, it's only 3,722. So what's occurred here, and the reason why we've seen no movement in China specifically, and we've seen no movement in EB3, is it comes down to the number availability. And this is where it's the first come, first serve mentality as we start to look at what the spillovers mean. And the vast majority of those individuals in the backlog are of Indian or for Indian nationals. Um, I was actually quoted a few weeks ago where I said the latest data that I had seen was 1.2 million. So that's individuals and their families. Some of the data that I've seen recently over the last week indicates that that number has increased somewhere between 1.4 to 1.6. I don't have exact numbers, but think about that. That's an additional, anywhere between an additional 200,000 to 400,000 that the green card backlog has grown over the last 6 months, but yet EB2 dates specifically have advanced over 800 days in the last 7 months. So the data is starting to not align. And what that means to me is that there's going to be some significant disappointment that's going to occur, most likely in October or November. And I think that disappointment now is becoming more and more expected. Why? Well, the breaking point is this. Based on the 70,000 or so numbers for EB2 specifically from 2012 to 2014, we start to look at the spillover and USCIS's inability to process more than 200,000 cases. The numbers just aren't going to align. 140 allotted, potentially 70,000 in EB2 alone. That puts that number somewhere above 210,000. So what does that mean? Well, I think the foreshadowing here is that I believe we'll see a conscious effort from the Department of State to most likely hold EB2 dates of filing as is. Okay. That's why we didn't see any movement. Okay. Over the last month, specifically for EB2 dates of filing. It held at December of 2014. I thought we'd see around 60 days of forward movement, but very clearly I was wrong there. But what's happening now is you're starting to see this effort, I believe, to move the final action dates to parallel where the dates of filing are by the end of the fiscal year. So does that mean we'll see kind of 30 days forward movement over the next 3 months for final action with no movement for dates of filing? That's something that for me right now, I've got to give some more thought to, and I've got to process some of my analytics around that I use to come up with those forecasts. But ultimately, if we look back on the last several months, the only categories that have shown any movement, EB1's been given, it's remained current, but it's been in EB2 India specifically, both in final action and dates of filing other than this past June. So the effort on the Department of State to advance the dates, the effort on USCIS to process as many cases as possible, but yet they continue to use the pandemic as a reason for their inability to reduce their processing backlogs, which have just continued again to significantly grow to the point of over the last few weeks, reports are out there saying that the backlog has grown anywhere between 200,000 to 400,000. That's a big gap. That's significant. So the hope here is that there will be more spillover as we move into fiscal year 2023. And that spillover hopefully will eliminate any of the corrective action that's being foreshadowed. But right now, I think you continue to see incompetence within the walls of USCIS. However, I've gone on the record and stated that, you know, the director, Urjadu, she had a very difficult job when she took over last year. There were many factors that have led to the difficulty in her role. I'm still confident that her focus is to reduce these backlogs and is to alleviate the burdens, as we've seen through these temporary final rules and some of the mandates that have come down. But ultimately, to hear that the backlog continues to grow while we're seeing dates advance at a fairly rapid pace in EB2, but yet we go back and look at the I-140 calculations, which shows a little under 70,000 I-140s were approved in EB2 between 2012 to 2014 for India specifically. So the numbers are starting to not align, which is, of course, very concerning for a lot of you um, data analytics folks out there. But what I wanted to do now is just remind you again, if you haven't already, please like this video, this live stream. Uh, Subscribe to the H1B Guy channel on YouTube if you are not already. Would really appreciate your continued and ongoing support there, so that you're notified anytime we go live, like we have here today at 3 p.m. Eastern on May 20th, 2022. I do see some questions and comments already in the chat. If you have those questions or comments, drop those in the chat. I will be sure to get to those towards the end of the live stream. What do you guys think? Are you of the mindset that corrective action is all but guaranteed at some point in October or November of this year? Are you losing hope? Are you feeling like this is a lost cause and that you're one of those 1.4 million that's in this backlog that continues to grow as the delays continue to grow? What is your frustration level at this point? I can't imagine, based on everything that we're hearing and seeing, that you're feeling good about your situation. If your dates are current and you are at a point to where you are ready to file, then make it happen. My advice is you've got to capitalize while you can, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on your window and dates are going to go backwards. But that's still a TBA, right? Still one of those to be adjusted, right? This is an ongoing and very fluid subject that we talk about. It seems like the data and the calculations that the Department of State and USCIS continue to use continue to remain very fluid. With that being said, I do want to remind you that the super chat functions are open. If you're looking for ways that you can support the H1B Guy platform, you can do so through the super chat. There's also a super thanks function if you're watching or listening to this at a later date. What I wanted to move on to next is something that I find very interesting. Of course, our partners, Mob Squad and Syndesis and Path to Canada, um, they are an outlet for individuals that are in the US and also globally that are looking to relocate to Canada. But what has come up and really rapidly accelerated in kind of what I call the post pandemic era, and it was happening and occurring before, but the rise of the digital nomads, specifically digital nomad visas. And there was an article that was put out a couple of days ago on March 18th, written by Craig Dempsey for Nearshore America's, titled Digital Nomad Visas Are Sprouting in Latin America and the Caribbean. And the article goes on to highlight Argentina, which recently introduced a digital nomad visa in an effort to attract remote workers as governments in the region, specifically Latin America and the Caribbean, turn into the economic benefits offered by this pandemic boosted population. Okay. And so what we've seen is that Argentina now has a digital nomad visa. And Antigua and Barbuda, they have one that is called a digital nomad residence, and it's valid for up to 2 years. The minimum annual salary is at least 50,000 US dollars earned outside of Antigua and Barbuda. That may seem like a low figure to most of us that work in tech, but that's a relatively high figure compared to some of the other minimum salary requirements that are seen in other parts of Latin America. Brazil in January announced its own digital nomad visa. And what you have to basically prove is that you're employed by a company outside of the country and you are capable of doing your work entirely online. A couple of the other requirements include you must earn up to $1,500 per month and hold at least 18,000 US dollars in your bank account. The Brazilian Nomad Digital Visa is good for up to a year, but can be subsequently extended for another year. Costa Rica, which is considered to be one of the top 5 countries in the world for U.S. citizens living and working abroad. So Costa Rica passed its digital nomad laws in August of 2021, establishing what they call a new migratory classification known as remote services provider. But the interesting thing here is it covers individuals and their partner, as well as children under the age of 25. And so anyone that's granted this visa in Costa Rica receives the permission to remain in the country for at least 1 year and can be extended for another year as long as the individual spent at least 180 days of that first year in the country. The other benefit of working in Costa Rica as a digital nomad are that they are exempted from all taxes, including import taxes, equipment needed to perform their work. This applies to also vehicles, motor vehicles, if they need to drive it using a license issued here in the US or whatever, home country would be valid as long as the visa is valid. Another country, Ecuador, has a digital nomad visa. This launched recently in January of 2022. It offers remote workers the right to remain and work in the country for up to 2 years. In order to be eligible, you must show that you have a contract in a place to work with a foreign company. So that's a company outside of Ecuador that allows you to perform your duties online, and you must earn a minimum of 1,275 US dollars per month. Okay. And then Panama. Panama also has a digital nomad visa. This was introduced in May of 2021. It made it one of the first countries in the region to have this type of dedicated digital nomad visa for remote workers. To be eligible in Panama, you must be able to show that you have a job in place to work for a company outside of Panama and that you can support yourselves through online activities, meaning you can perform your work completely remotely. Panama does require, however, that you earn at least 36,000 US dollars per year, which would amount to roughly about $3,000 per month. So the really interesting thing here is now you see what is happening, right? The near shore. So not just Canada, not just Mexico, but you have Central American and Caribbean companies now that are capitalizing on this digital nomad. That doesn't just apply to US citizens, right? It also applies to high skilled immigrants that are here in the US whose status may be uncertain. It's another alternative. So, just to do a quick recap, looking back on the highlights from the article, you've got Argentina, you have Antigua and Barbuda, Brazil, South American, Costa Rica, Central American, Ecuador, Central American, Panama, Central American, right? So you're seeing what's going on here as this relates to the migration shifts that are happening in high skilled immigration. And a lot of this ties back to the constrictive nature of US laws, right? And how we put caps on the amount of individuals that can come, live, and work here under an employment based visa. I recently was sitting down with a client earlier this week, and we were talking about the talent gap. And one of the things that came up was specifically international students that come here to the US to get a bachelor's or even a master's. And unless their degrees in STEM, they have 12 months to find work, gain sponsorship, or else. The or else is they can go back into a different status, specifically CPT F1, or they can leave the country. So what you're starting to see is other countries now are capitalizing on the very restrictive nature of our high skilled immigration laws. And why wouldn't they, right? We start to think about the quality of life in countries like Costa Rica and Panama and Argentina and Brazil and Antigua and Barbuda. This makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of the minimums that they're putting in place, the year to 2 year increments that they're allowing these fully remote workers to live and work in their country. So that article really caught my eye. I know I've covered some of the nearshore aspects of high skilled immigration and work migration, recently, but I wanted to just highlight it again here, as I think that the relevancy is this. As we continue to make it more and more difficult for individuals to remain working here in the US, um, partners like Mob Squad and Syndesis and Path to Canada have found a lot of success in relocating jobs to Canada. I mean, we're talking about over 400,000, right? Visa availabilities annually in Canada right now. We look at some of the nearshore activity that's happening in Mexico and Monterrey specifically. So there's a lot going on here when we start to look at nearshore activities, and the digital nomad lifestyle that the pandemic aggressively accelerated. And a lot of you who've followed this channel for a long time have heard me talk about the global digital society that we're all living and working in. So just wanted to ask you again, if you haven't already, please like this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube and click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime we go live, like we have here today on Friday, May 20th at 3 p.m. If you're looking for ways to support the H1B Guy platform, you can do so through the super chat function currently during this live stream, or if you're watching at a later date, you can do so through the super thanks. There's also ways to support and help produce the show in the video description below. I see a lot of your questions and comments already in the chat. I definitely plan to get to those. If you have others, please post those. The last thing I wanted to highlight is my good friend Deep Patel and the staff at Improve the Dream took a trip to Washington, D.C. this week, and they showed up in huge numbers. And on May 18th, Representative Deborah Ross, Congresswoman Deborah Ross from North Carolina, specifically in that RTP district, who has been a champion for the America's Children's Act, hosted the individuals from Improve the Dream, as well as Senators Alex Padilla, Senator Durbin, and Representative Ame Berra. And when we look at this standalone bill and why it's getting a lot of traction, it isn't just about the root cause when we talk about documented dreamers. Yes, the green card backlog, 7% quota on country caps is a big part of that. Okay, it is. But it's just not unique to H4s. Okay, there are E2s that are impacted significantly by this as well. And so for me, as I've been championing this cause going all the way back to January of 2021, and I've been working with the folks that Improve the Dream around November, December of 2020, to see their rise and the advocacy efforts that they've taken on here. It's been just a really fun thing to watch happen. And I saw some photos on Twitter from the Improve the Dream handle where they were actually meeting with White House staff. And I've gone on record and said that I believe this bill specifically, the Americans Children's Act, had the highest probability of passing as a standalone, but I would not be surprised to see it included as part of a bigger comprehensive immigration reform initiative. The thing that scares me, though, and when we look at who is included in this and who showed up for the photo opportunities, right? Our good friend, Senator Durbin. And the interesting thing here is that, does this agenda meet his? And so I want to warn those that are putting a lot of hope in this America's Children's Act. When we see the involvement of Senator Durbin, to me, it almost is a death sentence. When we look at his track record of what he's done for immigration, horrible. When we look at his track record for killing immigration bills that don't suit his campaign donors, horrible. Very clearly to me, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and one of the longest standing Democratic senators, who carries unwielding power as it relates to immigration reform, I just want to be very optimistically cautious here. I do feel like the America's Children's Act does have the right amount of bipartisan support. The reason why I say that is it really comes down to common sense. And that common sense is we've continued to allow up to 10,000 US educated and US raised documented dreamers to self deport annually. And so, as I just talked about in the Nomad digital visas in Central America and the Caribbean, right? They're opening individuals like this with open arms, right? And so, this is where, to me, we start to look at the talent gap that's occurred and how do we solve that talent gap. And it comes back to international students in advanced degree categories having work authorization that's longer than 12 to 36 months. And that piece of immigration reform, in my opinion, is going to be one of the most critical in closing that talent gap as we continue to move forward over the next several years. Is that a possibility of happening? I don't know. But I do feel like when I look at what is one of the solutions that could be common sense, that could help eliminate some of the talent gap, why would we not want to point back to US educated, US raised, and international students who come here to the US, okay, in search of an education and in search of a better opportunity? But kudos to my friends that improved the dream and everything they've been able to accomplish. I am rooting for you. I'm rooting for the America's Children's Act. And I hope that this common sense piece of legislation finds its way in the Senate. It comes up to a vote, and we can see this put on the president's desk for signature. So, with that being said, I do want to move into the Q&A portion of the live stream here today. Again, just one last time, I want to remind everyone, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, and click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime we go live, like I have here today on Friday, May 20th, 2022, at little after 3 p.m. Eastern. And what I believe may possibly be the first Friday live stream in the history of the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. So let's move into the Q&A. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, I know you've been posting them, but let's post them now, and I'm going to jump right into them. So Amit asks, my H1B petition for fiscal year 2023 was approved a couple of weeks ago, and my STEM OPT application was also approved this week. Post my OPT expiration in June until October 1st. Will I be on STEM, OPT, or Cap Gap? I believe you would be, if your STEM OPT was approved, you'd be under STEM until October 1st, is I believe how that would be determined. I also am under the assumption that you still would maintain work authorization based on your current EAD card if your other one has been approved and being issued. But great question. Congrats on getting your H1B petition approved and having H1B work authorization starting on October 1st. But keep me posted. I'd love to find out how this works out for you, but I believe you would be under STEM OPT since you're eligible for that extension. Cap Gap would technically be a scenario where your STEM OPT was expiring and your H1B was approved. Hey, John, how are you? Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Your priority date is February 28th, 2014. You sent in your I-485 application to USCIS the first week of May. Awesome. I'm glad you were ready to get that going. When can I expect a receipt notice? It says my PD is current now. When can I expect my green card? This is exactly what I was alluding to, these processing delays, right? And there's these rumors out there, folks that filed in October of 2020 that still have their case pending. I laugh because it makes me angry and uncomfortable, not because I find it funny. Okay. When can you expect your green card? I don't know. Your receipt anywhere between 60 to 180 days. Yeah, they're taking that long to put them out there. But my guess is you need to prepare to have an EAD with advanced parole. I would also, if I am you, look at a possibility of what your H1B looks like right now and when it expires, because I've been an advocate for maintaining H1B status while you have an EAD with advanced parole rights. I think it gives you the best options unless you need to leave the country. But my 2 cents is, if you can and if you haven't, stretch out that H1B as long as you can while you're waiting on your adjustment of status to be approved. But in the meantime, I wouldn't plan to have my green card anytime soon. The best hope for you right now is that EAD with advanced parole. But really appreciate your question, and thank you so much for jumping in here. I would love to hear back from you though. If you can let me know when you do receive that receipt notice. As I said, I expect it to be somewhere around the 60-day mark. So if you filed it first week of May, I'd expect maybe first week of July, maybe a little bit after that. But keep me posted. Hey, Nahar, how are you? Your PD is December 8th, 2014. Based on the mover prediction, do you suggest medical can be done in advance? Yeah, medical can be done in advance. My biggest concern for you, though, is I'm not sure if dates of filing are going to move anymore. And it feels like to me a little bit like last year in EB3, where they jumped that date all the way up, right? There was big advancement. And then they had the date, meaning the dates of filing. And then they slowly and methodically moved dates, the final action dates, to mirror those dates of filing. And then what happened? November, we saw that significant retrogression, right, in EB3. What's happened and occurred this year in EB2 feels very similar. It just does. It has a similar feel to me right now. And so my biggest concern for you, Nahar, is I don't know if your dates of filing are going to come current by October. I hope that they do. But medicals, to answer your question, medicals can be done in advance and they can be valid for up to a year. So if you're confident or you want to see what happens once July posts and you want to go ahead and get those medicals done, maybe you're only out a couple of $100 on that medical examination. Make sure that you a USCIS approved physician to do your medicals, and they're valid for up to 12 months. Hey, Nilesh, how are you? Any updates on bipartisan bills approving, especially to obtain any unused visa dumped or anything for the medical field employees? Yeah, there seems to be a lot, right? Like over this year alone, and if we go back to the Eagle Act, right, and all of these different pieces of legislation, we've had over 7 different immigration-related pieces of legislation that have been introduced in committee or on the floor. But I would hope that we see some sort of recapture. Representative Lofgren introduced a piece of legislation about a month and a half ago that was part of the text that was included in the Build Back Better that wasn't passed. So I believe that'll be something that I think could get some traction as part of a larger comprehensive immigration reform initiative. I also think that the medical field piece, right, medical doctors and registered nurses specifically, I think that we'll see reform that surrounds their path, or at least extension of their path to permanent residency. And don't forget the PhD pieces, US PhDs, right? That's something that's being championed in the America Competes, or what a lot of folks are referring to as the China bill. But yeah, there's a lot of different bipartisan bills out there, Nilesh. And I think we could see a piecemeal from a variety of the 7 or 8 immigration legislation texts that are out there. And that could be what Senator Durbin's been referring to when he talks about the America Competes, and when he goes on record and talks about other forms of immigration. I think he's looking to put a big feather in his cap, and ultimately it's going to be where the donors are for him. because that's the link for him. There's no doubt you can follow the money on him, and it will very clearly show you how he operates um, in terms of his governing. But great question. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Really appreciate it. Hey, nice empty songs. Can someone be unemployed when 485 is pending by using EAD? If yes, for how long? Um, I'm not 100% positive on this, but when the EAD with advanced parole is issued, it does allow for work authorization. The biggest thing is that 180 days, right? You've got to be working. There's that 180 days of your adjustment of status pending, and then you've got to work for the employer for 180 days once the EAD has been issued. Okay. So I would look into that, but maintaining employment is critical. If you're not currently working, but you have the authorization and freedom to choose who you work for and how much you're paid, I would do my very best. But the biggest thing I would say is probably 60 days is the longest I would let that window of time go. Hey, Sesha, how are you, man? Thank you so much. Nice to see you this afternoon. Based on the current EB2 movement, can you please let me know if you think PD of 2/19/2015 will hit anytime this year? I thought it was going to last month. I thought we were going to see February 1st, 2015 for dates of filing. But when that didn't happen, now my tone has changed as I start to dive into the data a little bit more. And what I find really interesting when you look at some of the I-140 numbers, specifically for EB2 in 2015, it's over 50,000 I-140s were approved in 2015 in EB2 for India specifically. Um, the next month or two, though, is going to be very telling. Right now, I'm cautioning on being very conservative, which is to say that I don't believe that dates of filing are going to move. They could, but I don't believe as of right now, as of today, I've got still about 10 plus days or so to produce the H1B Guy forecast July 2022 visa bulletin predictions, which will come out on Wednesday, June the 1st. But I'm not feeling like there's gonna be a 2015 in the future. I don't think that it's gonna get there, and then I still feel like November, December, we're gonna see some sort of corrective actioning that could occur early in the fiscal year for next year. Will we see any traction in EB3 best and worst case scenario? When should we expect movement in EB3 in most ideal situation? Rakesh is asking that. I don't think that there's going to be movement in EB3 until October, but something could happen maybe in August or September. I think July is still going to be a standstill. It just comes down to the number demand and the allocation in EB3, which is that number demand is extremely high in EB3 and the allocation is much lower. All of the spillover numbers are going to EB2. So that's what's creating that movement that we've been seeing in EB2 and the lack of movement after the retrogression in EB3 last November. But again, right now, I still feel like October. Mega says September to you, Rakesh. So again, take that for what it is. But I'm feeling like most likely, um, most likely October is still what I feel like. Hey, Sajin, how are you? Your PD is June 2014, downgraded in October 2020. What do you suggest? Enter file. I'm current EB2 with June Visa Bulletin. Please let me know your thoughts. Yeah, I have advised on the inner file over the last couple of months. I go back to something that I continued to say in October and November of 2020. You can go back and watch a lot of those videos where I just advised against the downgrade. I felt like it was a grab and it didn't make sense. And I felt like if you qualified an EB2, which is the higher qualification, why would you want to downgrade your skill, right? Your requirements to EB3, other than to capitalize on the dates moving. But that doesn't answer your question. You're current right now. So my advice to you would be one, if your employer is willing to enter file, and two, maybe having a conversation with your attorney to see what their thoughts on enter file. If you've already had those conversations and you're looking for mine, what do you have to lose? At this point, what do you have to lose? And that really comes down to you could be stuck in limbo between two. EB2 could retrogress significantly in October, and your June 2014 could advance by a year or two, and then you're current again in EB3 and you're stuck in limbo again. That's what you have to lose. There's a lot of risk there for sure. But I also feel like if you think this is what's best for you and your family, or you have another pending scenario or situation, maybe you have a documented dreamer who's aging out and you're looking to lock them in, right? If you haven't, then I would say go for it and maybe enter file. But I talk with your employer, see if they're willing to do it because they downgraded you in October, and maybe have a quick conversation with your immigration attorney. Hey, Josephine, how are you? Email address is theh1bguy@gmail.com. You can also communicate with me directly through my website, theh1bguy.com. What are my predictions for final action dates by September, provided we have spillovers again for 2023? That's a great question, Megan. I alluded to this a little bit earlier. I feel like December 2014, it just has this feel to me like my spidey sense is what I call this, and I think this is what makes me good at what I do. I've been tracking the Visa Bulletin for over 10 years now. So I have this feel for it. It doesn't mean I'm always right, and a lot of you love to tell me when I'm wrong. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know anyone else that's hitting 100% on their Visa Bulletin predictions because they are predictions. They're guesses. And anyone that's telling you they're anything otherwise is lying to you. I always say my own personal hunches and completely made up guesses. To answer your question, though, I think December 2014, right now, as of this very moment. Could that change mid-June after the July bulletin comes out? Absolutely. But if you're looking for an answer for me right now, Mega, it's December 2014. Rakesh asks, why is EB3 not moving despite a lot of EB2 downgraded? Have already have gotten their GC. What's the realistic move in this? I'm a May 2012 PD. If I go back to, there was a Chats with Charlie session where he highlighted some data with some graphs and showed the demand on EB3 and the available number allocation for EB3. And there was a significant gap. I knew right then there was going to be corrective action. And this was like, I think Chats with Charlie episode 6 or 7. But you can go back and watch. I did the Chats with Charlie top 20 things I learned where I talked about this specifically. But yeah, I think that it just comes down to the thousands of downgrades that occurred. I heard somewhere around 40,000 that occurred. And the amount of numbers that are allocated each year for India EB3. And then going back to the spillovers, all those that remain in EB2, right, are taking over those spillover numbers. The President Advisory, Rohit says the President Advisory Committee has recommended complete all green cards within 6 months. Can you please throw some light on this recommendation? And can we see any change in the existing process? I hope so. But as of today, Friday, May 20th, 2022, I don't think it's feasible or reasonable to think that all green cards will be completed in the next 6 months. That's just an unrealistic expectation from the President's Advisory Committee, and quite honestly, slightly delusional. Any chance EB2 PD priority date October 15th can happen before fiscal year 2022 December? So I think what you're asking me here is, do I think that October of 2015 in India EB2 will happen before December of the end of December or this December 2022? That's a little different than the fiscal year. So the fiscal year actually ends September 30th. Um, but yeah, I think for EB2, again, we're at December 2014. So you're talking about 10 months of advanced movement that would have to happen between now and December. And there's a lot of these rumors around the corrective action because of the number allocation. So right now, I'd say I'm 50-50 on this. If there is not corrective action, if there is another significant amount of spillovers available, then yes, there is a possibility, but I don't know if it would get to October. I think we may see more in the beginning of 2015. I think you're kind of in that back half of really, I'd say maybe April or May of 2023, depending on whether there is significant corrective action or not. Hey, Shrivan, how are you? Your PD is July 2015. When can you expect your date current? EB2 or EB3, Shrivan? Let me know. Do you think for physical therapists, scheduled A worker for 2015 PD should have both EB3 2 for faster approval and have two I-140s? Will that benefit from your experience? So, yeah, so I have a good friend who came on this channel, who I haven't talked to in quite a while, actually, who I need to reconnect with. But he was on the H1B Guy Stamp It Out episode 3, I believe. Um, and he's a physical therapist, and we talked about this a lot. Um, I feel like, to me, if you're an EB2, I'd sit in EB2. I just would. I'm going to continue to stick by, if you qualify for EB2, stay in EB2 and don't do anything else right now. Nilesh says, thank you again for taking my question. Highly appreciate it. Absolutely. My pleasure. I love doing these live streams. And I just wanted to remind everyone again, like, make sure you like this video. If you're not already, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. Click the bell for notifications. If you're looking for ways you want to support this platform and channel, you can do so through the super chat function. Watching it at a later date, you can do so through the super thanks function. This is just me being open and honest with you based on what I know. I've been doing this almost 20 years. I've been following the BISA Bulletin for 10 years. I'm a staffing, augmentation, and work authorization expert as it relates to high-skilled immigrants currently working here in the U.S., specifically in tech. Doesn't mean that I can't talk about the medicals. Doesn't mean I can't talk about others, but my experience has been specifically in tech. Hey, Rama, my good friend, so good to hear from you. How are you doing? You asked, hey, Robert, how are you? It's been a long time since I attended your H1B Guy Live. Thanks for doing this. My question is, what is your prediction for October 2021, EB2 and EB3? Will there be retrogression? I don't see any retrogression in EB3, but it sure feels like EB2 will, doesn't it, Rama? This has a lot of feel like last year when we go back to April and EB1 dates started to become current consistently. EB3 was advancing at a crazy pace. It advanced all the way up to 2015, I believe, and as of September. And then October, we saw minimal, and then it happened. The corrective action happened in EB3 for India and China, and it was like 600 plus days. So a lot of backward action there. But I feel like I want to see what July looks like. If there's no movement for dates of filing in July and final action dates in India EB2 advance a month, then I think that what I'm foreshadowing here, which is September, will be a December 1st, 2014. Moving into October, there may be a slight bump, but then I think when we see November, That corrective action is going to occur either in October or November or December, that one of the first 3 months of the fiscal year, if everything we've been hearing and alluding to actually happens. Now, if there's a significant amount of spillover, that may not be the case. But Rama, it's so good to hear from you, man. I'm glad you were able to join me here today. It's been a long time since we've had a chance to catch up. So nice to see you. What do I think about the American Children's Act? I love it. I think one of the biggest atrocities that has happened in this country in the last 30 years is legal childhood arrivals who were brought to the U.S. Um, without a choice, right? Their parents brought them. They didn't have a choice. And they're U.S. educated, they're U.S. raised. Most of them identify as an American. And as I've talked about, Wahid, their 21st birthday, which is a huge celebration for American children, is not for documented dreamers. And when we continue to tell U.S. educated that you've got to self-deport at the age of 21, or you've got to go in an alternate status, F1, OPT, H1B, the cycle is vicious and it's not right. And it's something that I absolutely disagree with. And I want to see changed as soon as absolutely possible. Because these kids, as I call them, are the next generation. They are the fulfillment of the talent gap that I constantly talk about. Hey, Super Mario, you're not living in the U.S. Can I tell the people from U.S.? So you're asking if a swim instructor would qualify for a specialty occupation. I'm not sure, but if you were a coach at maybe a university, you would. So that may be a pathway that you would look in. I'm not sure what swimming instructor, what that SIC, that category code would be. But you can definitely look into that. But yeah, I would think if you were a coach at a university, that would absolutely be a possibility. Hey, Amit, my recommendation for folks between October to December 2014, EB2 India downgrade. No, don't do it. I wouldn't do it. I'm going to go back to what I said in October of 2020 and all the way literally until last fall when I allowed Charlie Oppenheim to convince me that the downgrade, while it was pending, was the best of both worlds. I disagree with that now. That video, is what it is. At the time, it was what I was thinking. But right now, I would hold tight. Hold tight, Amit. Don't do anything right now. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch this. Does anyone have the link? I tried to find it on their YouTube channel, but I would love to watch it. I know Urjadu was on. I'd love to see what's there, but I'm gonna go back and warn you that this is a lot of bureaucracy speak, right? Sell you hope. Okay, so be careful with bureaucrats who are selling you hope. Okay, Shrivan, you're asking for EB2. When do I expect your date to be current? So I was talking about October 2015 earlier. If there is not corrective action, let's hope that you would be maybe the beginning of the second quarter. So this is under the assumption that there is more spillover. There's no corrective action. Hopefully February. Maybe March, but if there's corrective action, of course, that goes completely out the window. EB3 India, no movement until October. And even then, I would expect maybe 3 to 6 months of movement. That's across dates of filing and final action. Hey, Vish, how are you? You fall in the category of October 2020 downgrade. I-45 package was sent to TCS in March 2022. I've interfiled my 45J to California. I want to know how my interfile linked to 485 at TCS. I'm not certain. I don't want to try to answer this because I just don't know. But my assumption would be it sounds like your case has been moved because of this significant backlog. So hopefully you're coming up soon. Have you already gotten your EAD AP though, Vish? I'm interested. Can you drop that in the chat really quickly? I'd love to know if you've already gotten that. Um, but you're one of the thousands, right? That's in the same category. Texas, boo. Nebraska, boo, right? Hopefully California is going to be a little better as it relates to your inner file here. But, I say boo because you look at just how atrocious Nebraska and Texas service centers have been. Um, Maybe yours moving to California is a blessing. So you're asking for both filing and final action. Again, I just kind of went by final action there when I said February or March, assuming that there is no corrective action in EB2. Servon. Oh, I missed one. RRH, yes, sir. I am a very proud Georgia Southern alumni. My wife is a Georgia Southern alumni. My brother-in-law went to Georgia Southern. Many of my best life friends are Georgia Southern alumni. Um, I got an excellent education at Georgia Southern, a business management degree in sales management and marketing. And I turned that into a career in technology and IT staffing. And I'm very grateful for my time in Statesboro. Some of my really good friends still live in Statesboro and are raising their families in Statesboro. Back in April, my wife and I had an opportunity to stop through Statesboro after we were in Savannah for a wedding. And I picked up some new swag. And I bleed Georgia Southern blue and white, and I always will. And I'm a very proud alumni, and would absolutely recommend any of you with children to consider Georgia Southern as a place of education for them. So yeah, Vish, you got your EAD AP. Are you still working under your H1B? I'm curious. Hopefully you are, so that you still have those options. But what I wanted to do right now is just take time to thank all of you and all the great chats and comments that were put here in this live stream today. Vish, she said, you've seen some of them got their GCs, even though their final action dates are not current, like December 2013, which is current in the June bulletin. Yeah. It's a mess, Vish. It's a mess. And it makes me angry. It makes me uncomfortable, and it continues to fuel what I do here on the H1B Guy platform, which is my goal here is to help you make decisions based on my opinion. I'm not an attorney. I just give opinions based on what I know. And what I know is that this is a very complicated system. It isn't to benefit you. While you're here seeking a better opportunity for you and your family, right now we make it really difficult. And if you're a high skilled immigrant considering coming to the US, you've got to understand is if you're from India or if you're from China, you're going to sit in this backlog 1.4, 1.6 million and growing. And something has to be done, and we've got to wake up. We've got to organize. We have to advocate. And I just, hope that you all who have joined me here this afternoon, or if you're watching this at a later date, that you provide that I provide value to you, not just entertainment, but value in the sense that you can make conscious decisions based on your own personal situation, because no one else is going to look out for you but you. Very clearly, the exploitation of high skilled immigrants has gone on for a long time in this country. And at some point, as we've seen with the digital nomad visas that are occurring in Latin America and the Caribbean, our neighbors to the north who are open arms for high skilled immigrants, our neighbors to the south who are open arms for high skilled immigrants, we have to wake up and realize that high skilled immigrants aren't stealing American jobs. There were 11.5 million job postings in March. And we have to fill jobs specifically in tech, which has about a 1.8% unemployment rate right now, in order to keep innovating and maintaining the advancements that occur here in this country. I love this country very much. I am a diehard American, but understand that I advocate for staffing, for tech, because I see the gaps. I work with clients all the time that struggle to fill jobs, and that's because of the talent gap. It's real, it's present, and anyone who's telling you not is lying. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up today. I just wanted to thank all of you who've taken time to drop a comment, a question, like this video, show your support to me. I really appreciate it. I'll probably do a live stream again next week. We'll get back on the H1B Guy news next week as well. I haven't put that out over the last couple of weeks. As I said, I've just been very busy with my clients and within my personal life. But I did want to jump in here this Friday and do this live stream and answer your questions and take your comments. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. This live stream was brought to you by our partner, Syndesis and Path to Canada, the ideal plan B for high-skilled immigrants currently located in the U.S. whose status may be uncertain. If you're facing an H-1B denial or OPT expiration, don't get caught off guard. Make sure you have a plan B. Syndesis and Path to Canada are your answers. They will gladly help you navigate this process. If you want to find out if you qualify, please be sure to use the link in the video description below. Someone from Syndesis or Path to Canada will be in touch. And also by PERM-ads.com, the industry leader in providing a seamless experience for employers and immigration attorneys navigating the complex PERM recruitment ad phase of the labor certification process. If you're looking to reduce your costs and overhead associated with PERM labor certification recruitment advertising, let PERM-ads.com help you. And also by Mob Squad. If you're a technology professional working in the US facing work visa related challenges, maybe your OPT visa is about to expire, you weren't selected in the recent H1B lottery, our partner Mob Squad has multiple solutions to help. They help technology professionals in the US as well as those from around the world who are seeking an opportunity to find a rewarding career in North America, work either near shore in Canada or with an organization in Canada. Through their partnership with the Canadian government, they can obtain a Canadian work permit for you and your spouse in as low as 6 to 8 weeks. So whether you're looking to work, whether you're looking to stay working with your current U.S. company, or you want to find a new opportunity in Canada, find out how the team at Mob Squad can help you. Please be sure to use the link in the video description below. Join the squad. Well, I just wanted to ask you one more time, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, and click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime I post new content here on this channel or I go live like I did here today on May 20th, 2022 at 3 p.m. Eastern. For those of you who have made it this far, again, thank you so much for your continued support, your loyalty to me and this platform. I am forever grateful for all of you. I'm Robert. I'm the H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.